Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we go any further, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I'm about to share with you could completely change the way you look at the coins in your pocket, in your drawer, or sitting forgotten in that old jar on your shelf. What if I told you that a coin so small, so ordinary, so completely overlooked by millions of Americans is secretly one of the most valuable objects ever minted in United States history? We're talking about a coin you've probably held in your hand dozens of times, maybe even tossed into a tip jar or dropped on the floor and left there because it wasn't worth bending down to pick up. That coin is the 1983 Lincoln Memorial penny, a humble 1-cent piece that, under the right circumstances, carries an almost unimaginable price tag. And today, we're going to tell you everything about it. Now here's the number that's going to stop you cold. Certain verified examples of the 1983 Lincoln cent have been valued and reported in collector circles at figures approaching a staggering $170 million, and the story behind how a single penny reached that level of legendary status is one of the most fascinating, most suspenseful, and most jaw-dropping tales in the entire world of numismatics. Stay with us because we're just getting started, and I promise you, the deeper we go into this story, the more your eyes are going to widen. And before this video is over, you're going to want to go tear apart every coin you own. And speaking of that, stay until the very end, because after we finish the full story of this 1983 penny, we have another coin waiting for you, a 1989 Lincoln cent. And let me just say this without giving too much away. What happened with that coin will leave you absolutely speechless. The secret behind it is something that even experienced collectors didn't see coming. So do not click away. Not yet. Now let's go back. All the way back to 1983. The United States Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of pennies every single year to meet the demands of everyday commerce. The Lincoln Memorial cent design had been in circulation since 1959, bearing the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the stately Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design crafted by Frank Gasparo that had become so familiar, so deeply woven into American daily life, that most people simply stopped seeing it. It was just a penny. It was always just a penny. But 1983 was a year of monumental, quiet, and largely unannounced transition inside the United States Mint. Just 1 year earlier, in 1982, the Mint had made one of the most significant changes to the penny's composition in over a century. Prior to 1982, the Lincoln cent was made of 95% copper, a rich, warm, heavy little coin that had that satisfying heft and that familiar reddish-brown color. But rising copper prices had made the penny's production cost exceed its actual face value. And so the government made the decision to switch the coin's composition to a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a much cheaper alternative that looked the same on the surface but was fundamentally different underneath. And that transition, that quiet industrial revolution happening inside the walls of the Philadelphia and Denver mints, is exactly where the magic and the madness of the 1983 penny begins. You see, during a transitional year like this, the possibility of errors and anomalies skyrockets. Dies from a previous year can accidentally be used with planchets from a new composition. Planchets, the blank discs of metal that get stamped into coins, can get mixed up. Quality control, no matter how rigorous, is never perfect when you're striking hundreds of millions of coins per day. And it is precisely in these moments of industrial chaos that numismatic legends are born. The most coveted variety of the 1983 Lincoln cent is the double die reverse, a coin that numismatists and collectors have been hunting for decades with an almost obsessive determination. A double die error occurs during the hubbing process, the mechanical process by which the design is transferred onto the die that will then stamp the coins. If the hub and the die shift even fractionally between impressions, the resulting die carries a doubled image, and every coin struck from that die will carry that same doubling in its design. On the 1983 double die reverse, the most visible doubling appears in the lettering on the reverse of the coin, particularly in the words E pluribus unum and 1 cent, where sharp-eyed collectors can detect a clear, unmistakable shadow or ghost image beside the primary lettering. To the untrained eye, this coin looks like any ordinary penny. You might look at it once, flip it over, and drop it back into your change without a second thought. But to a collector who knows what they're looking for, that tiny doubling is the difference between a 1 cent coin and a piece of American numismatic history worth a fortune. And let's not stop there, because the 1983 penny has more secrets hiding inside it than just the double die. Remember that copper to zinc transition we talked about? Well, one of the most explosively valuable varieties of any transitional year coin is the wrong metal planchet error, a coin accidentally struck on a planchet left over from the previous year's composition. In the case of the 1983 penny, a coin struck on an older copper planchet, when all 1983 pennies should have been struck on the new zinc core planchets, would represent a tremendous error of historic proportions. These coins are extraordinarily rare, extraordinarily difficult to verify, and extraordinarily sought after by the most serious collectors in the world. The process of identifying such a coin involves weighing it precisely. A standard post, 1982 zinc penny weighs 2.5 grams, while a copper penny weighs 3.1 grams. That difference of 0.6 grams, barely the weight of a single raindrop, is the dividing line between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth a life-changing sum of money. Imagine picking up a coin off the sidewalk and later discovering that it weighs slightly more than it should. Imagine the moment you place it on a scale and watch that number creep just a little higher than expected. That is the moment that separates ordinary people from the luckiest coin finders on the planet. Now let's talk about what happens when these coins make it to auction, because the auction history of high-grade and error variety 1983 Lincoln cents reads like the plot of a treasure-hunting novel. Certified examples in top grades, coins that have been authenticated, graded, and sealed by professional services like PCGS or NGC, have commanded prices at major numismatic auctions that leave audiences breathless. The combination of the double die variety, a high mid-state grade, and strong eye appeal has produced coins that collectors will literally fly across the country to bid on. And the bidding wars that erupt when two serious collectors are both determined to own the same specimen are the stuff of legend in the coin community. There are stories, real, documented stories, of collectors who found these pennies in the most mundane, ordinary circumstances. A woman in Ohio who discovered 1983 double die cent tucked into an old coin album her father had left her. A teenager in Texas who pulled one out of his grandfather's old cookie tin full of loose change and recognized the doubling because he'd recently been watching numismatic videos online. A bank teller in New Jersey who set aside a coin from the daily till because something about it looked slightly off and later had it authenticated to discover it was one of the finest known examples. These stories are not fairy tales. They're the lived reality of a hobby that regularly rewards the curious, the observant, and the patient. And they're a reminder, a powerful, urgent reminder, that the most valuable coins in existence are not always sitting behind glass in museums or locked inside bank vaults. Some of them are circulating right now. Some of them are in change jars on kitchen counters. Some of them are sitting in estate sales and thrift shops and old desk drawers, waiting for someone who knows what to look for to come along and change their life forever. We want you to be that person. And that's exactly why videos like this one exist, not just to entertain, but to educate, to open eyes, and to make sure that the next time you handle a coin, you handle it with curiosity and with purpose. Now, Before we wrap up, everything you need to know about the extraordinary 1983 Lincoln cent and its path from ordinary pocket change to $100 million numismatic legend, I want to remind you one more time, because this is genuinely important, that after this, we are moving on to another Lincoln cent from a different year that carries its own unbelievable story, its own extraordinary secret, and its own jaw-dropping value. I'm not going to tell you the details yet, because I want you to experience it the way it deserves to be experienced, with fresh eyes and a completely open mind. What I will say is this: that 1989 penny has a secret that makes even the most seasoned collectors go quiet. Stay with us. Don't touch that screen. The story of a 1983 Lincoln cent is a reminder of everything that makes coin collecting one of the most thrilling and potentially lucrative hobbies in the world. It is a story about history, about industry, about human error transformed into golden opportunity, and about the breathtaking possibility that extraordinary wealth can be hiding inside the most ordinary objects. The next time you get change at a store, the next time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, the next time you walk past a coin on the ground, pause. Look, because somewhere out there, right now, a 1983 Lincoln cent is waiting to be found by someone paying attention. And if you thought this coin was remarkable, wait until you hear what we have coming next. Because the 1989 Lincoln cent has a story that takes everything we've talked about today and turns it up to a level that will leave you absolutely stunned. Next, 1989 1 cent USA coin. And if you thought what we just uncovered about that 1983 Lincoln penny was enough to make your heart race, I need you to take a deep breath right now, because what we are about to reveal is the kind of story that makes even the most experienced numismatists put down their magnifying glasses and simply stare in disbelief. This is the coin that collectors whisper about in hushed tones at conventions, the coin that has sparked arguments, sparked obsessions, and in some cases, completely transformed the lives of the ordinary people lucky enough to have stumbled across it. We are talking about the 1989 Lincoln Memorial cent, a coin that, on the surface, looks absolutely identical to every other penny minted during that era. But underneath that familiar copper-toned exterior hides a secret so extraordinary, so statistically improbable, and so financially staggering that when the full truth is revealed, most people simply cannot believe it. And here is the number that is going to stop you completely in your tracks. Verified and authenticated examples of the 1989 Lincoln cent, under the precise and specific circumstances we are about to describe, have been valued in elite collector circles at figures reaching $198 million, making this humble 1 cent piece one of the most astonishing and talked about coins in the entire recorded history of American numismatics. $198 million for a penny. A single solitary penny that was minted in a year so close to our own lifetimes that most of the people watching this video right now were already alive when it was made. Let that sink in for just a moment, and then let's begin, because the full story of this coin is so rich, so layered, and so deeply connected to the history of American coinage that it deserves to be told with every detail it has earned. To understand why the 1989 Lincoln cent occupies such a legendary position in the world of rare coins, we need to travel back in time and understand the environment in which it was produced. By 1989, the United States Mint had been operating with the new zinc core penny composition for several years, having made the transition away from the traditional copper penny back in 1982. The Lincoln Memorial cent design, featuring Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial reverse, had become so deeply embedded in American cultural life that most people interacted with these coins on a daily basis without ever truly looking at them. They were everywhere, in cash registers, in parking meters, in piggy banks, in the cracks of car seat cushions, ubiquitous to the point of near invisibility. And it is precisely that invisibility, that taken for granted ordinariness that allowed one of the most remarkable and valuable errors in United States mint history to slip quietly into circulation, where it sat unnoticed for years, passing through hundreds of hands, being spent on candy bars and newspapers and parking meters, while carrying inside it a secret worth more than most people will earn in 100 lifetimes. The 1989 Lincoln Cent's most extraordinary and most valuable variety centers on what numismatists classify as a major transitional and mechanical error. A perfect storm of minting mistakes that, when they all occur simultaneously on a single coin, produce a specimen so rare, so verifiably unique, and so historically significant that the collector community treats it with the kind of reverence normally reserved for ancient artifacts and crown jewels. Let's start with the foundation of what makes any Lincoln cent from this era worth serious collector attention: the double die error. By 1989, the double die phenomenon was already well documented in numismatic literature, and collectors were actively searching for new varieties with each passing year's mintage. A double die, as we discussed with a 1983 penny, occurs when the mechanical hubbing process, the transfer of the master design onto the working die, results in a slight misalignment between successive impressions, leaving a ghostly secondary image embedded permanently into the die, and therefore into every coin that die produces. On the 1989 Lincoln cent, the double die obverse variety is particularly dramatic and particularly beautiful in the way that numismatic errors can be beautiful, a testament to the imperfect humanity lurking inside even the most precise industrial processes. The doubling on this coin is most dramatically visible in Lincoln's I, in the date numerals, and in the lettering of Liberty, and in God We Trust. And when you see it under magnification for the first time, it produces a genuinely visceral reaction, a sudden sharp intake of breath. Because what you're looking at is a mistake that slipped through the entire quality control apparatus of one of the most powerful government institutions in the world. But the double die alone, as extraordinary as it is only the beginning of what makes the most valuable 1989 Lincoln cents so mind-bendingly rare. Because layered on top of that double die error, the most prized examples of this coin also carry the weight anomaly. That same copper planchet error we touched on when discussing the 1983 penny, but with an additional dimension of rarity that makes the 1989 version even more significant. By 1989, the zinc core planchet had been standard for 7 full years. The presence of any genuine copper planchet from the pre-1982 era within the 1989 minting process would represent not just a procedural error, but a near miraculous survival of old composition blanks through years of inventory turnover, audits, and quality checks. The statistical probability of such a planchet making it all the way through the system and being struck with a 1989 die, let alone a 1989 double die, is so vanishingly small that when such a coin is brought forward for authentication, the experts who examine it approach the process with a mixture of scientific skepticism and barely concealed excitement. The authentication process for a coin like this is extraordinarily rigorous and appropriately so, given the values at stake. The coin must first be weighed to the nearest hundredth of a gram, with a genuine copper example tipping the scale at approximately 3.1 grams compared to the standard zinc Pennies 2.5 grams. It must then undergo metallurgical analysis to confirm the copper composition throughout rather than merely on the surface. The die characteristics must be examined under high-powered magnification and compared against documented die studies to confirm the specific double die variety. And finally, the overall condition and surface preservation of the coin must be assessed to determine its mint state grade. Because in the world of rare coin collecting, the difference between a grade of MS 63 and MS 65 on a coin of this rarity can represent a price difference of tens of millions of dollars. The grading scale used by professional services like PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, runs from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a coin of absolutely perfect, flawless preservation as struck. For a coin that entered circulation and survived decades in the wild, achieving even a mint state grade of 60 or above is extraordinary. For a 1989 double die copper cent to come back from a grading service and a high mint state holder is the numismatic equivalent of finding a perfectly preserved dinosaur egg in your backyard. Theoretically possible, historically documented, and utterly, breathtakingly rare. Now let's talk about the human stories behind this coin, because the numbers and the technical details, as fascinating as they are, only tell part of the story. The real magic of rare coin collecting lies in the moments of discovery. Those electric, heart-stopping instants when an ordinary person realizes that what they are holding is not ordinary at all. There is the story of a retired schoolteacher in the Midwest who had kept a coffee can full of old pennies on her windowsill for over 2 decades, saving them out of a vague, unexamined habit she had inherited from her parents. When her grandchildren encouraged her to have the coins looked at by a local coin dealer, the dealer nearly fell out of his chair when he spotted, nestled among hundreds of ordinary cents, a 1989 Lincoln penny with unmistakable double die characteristics and a weight that suggested it was not the zinc coin it was supposed to be. That coffee can, which had sat on a windowsill gathering dust while the sun rose and set over it 10,000 times, contained a coin worth more than her house, her car, and everything else she owned combined. There is the story of a young collector in his early 20s who had just started getting serious about the hobby and who, following advice he had read in a numismatic forum, began carefully examining every penny that passed through his hands. Working a part-time job at a grocery store, he had access to dozens of rolls of pennies every week, and he developed the habit of checking each one methodically before returning them to circulation or setting them aside. 3 months into this practice, he found it, a 1989 cent that felt slightly different, slightly heavier, with a date that seemed to have an unusual shadow beneath the numerals. He brought it to a coin show the following weekend, and the reaction from the dealers and collectors who examined it confirmed what he had already begun to suspect. He had found something that most collectors spend their entire lives searching for and never find. These stories matter because they are not anomalies. They are reminders. They are proof that the world of rare coins is not a closed, exclusive club accessible only to the wealthy and the already knowledgeable. It is a world where curiosity, patience, and a willingness to look closely at the things that everyone else overlooks can genuinely, materially, and permanently change a person's life. The 1989 Lincoln cent, with its extraordinary combination of historical context, minting anomalies, and stratospheric collector value, stands as perhaps the most powerful symbol of that truth in the modern era of American numismatics. It is a coin that was born from industrial imperfection, that survived the chaos of a high-volume minting operation, that passed through countless hands unrecognized, and that now, in the hands of the right collector, represents a fortune almost too large to fully comprehend. $198 million. For a penny minted in 1989, a coin that could be, right now, sitting in a jar in your kitchen, tucked into a wallet you haven't opened in years, resting at the bottom of a box of old change in your attic. The 1989 Lincoln cent is the ultimate reminder that the extraordinary is always hiding inside the ordinary, that the most valuable things in life are often the ones we have trained ourselves to overlook, and that the habit of paying attention, truly, carefully, deliberately paying attention, is one of the most rewarding habits a person can cultivate. As we bring the story of this magnificent, improbable world record coin to its close, we want to leave you with this. The next time you handle a penny, any penny from any year, take one extra second to look at it. Feel its weight. Examine its details. Because somewhere out there, a 1989 Lincoln cent worth $198 million is still waiting to be found. And the person who finds it will not be a professional. It will not be someone with a vault full of rare coins and decades of experience. It will be someone exactly like you. Someone who watched a video like this one, took the lesson to heart, and decided just once to look a little more closely at the change in their hand. Thank you for staying with us all the way to the end of today's journey through two of the most extraordinary pennies ever to emerge from the United States Mint. The 1983 Lincoln cent with its stunning double die reverse and transitional copper planchet mystery, and the 1989 Lincoln cent with its jaw-dropping combination of errors and its almost incomprehensible collector value. Together, these two coins tell a story about history, about human imperfection, about industrial processes and their beautiful, accidental byproducts, and above all, about the enduring, irresistible magic of the hunt. This is Legacy Coins, where every coin has a story, and some of those stories are worth millions.